The sky ripped open without a hint of warning. No sirens, no countdown. First came a piercing screech, then the blast. One missile erased the northern junction of Yemen's Ras Isa oil terminal in a white-hot flash. Seconds later, a second warhead found a row of fuel tanks and turned them into a tower of fire more than 30 stories high. In half a minute, 12 more hits followed, each landing with clockwork precision. It was not chaos. It was choreography, an attack timed to the second, plotted long before the first engine ignited. U.S. planners called it Package Delta. The name sounds harmless, almost bland, yet in Pentagon shorthand, it means a multi-stage strike meant to do three things: cripple fuel, shatter logistics, and blind command networks. On the night of 17th April, that plan slammed into Ras Isa like a steel hammer. Fuel depots disappeared. Warehouse roofs folded inward. A suspected command bunker hidden under a storage yard became a smoking pit. By the time the last bomb struck, what had been a busy coastal hub looked like the surface of the moon. For years, Ras Isa was spared. Even in the heaviest days of the Saudi-led air war, jets avoided the port, fearing global outrage and oil market panic. Houthi leaders treated the site like a safe deposit box. Pipelines were their lifeline, fuel their currency. But the unwritten rule, that big oil terminals stay off the target list, died at 1:17 a.m. local time. The United States did not just cross a line, it erased it. In the weeks before the strike, Houthi forces stepped up pressure in the Red Sea. Cargo tankers were buzzed at close range. U.S. Navy destroyers were radar-locked again and again. A Reaper drone was shot down. A surface-to-air missile streaked past an American F-16 with meters to spare. Each poke looked deliberate, as if the Houthis were daring Washington to swing back. Behind the scenes, American intelligence agencies collected proof that the port at Ras Isa had become more than a fuel stop. High-altitude Triton drones filmed strange movement at night. Signals intelligence teams traced encrypted radio bursts back to a relay hidden under the terminal's concrete slabs. Analysts concluded the site worked as a relay for field commanders and as a staging area for a fresh shipment of guided weapons. If true, that turned an economic site into a legitimate military node. That judgment lit the fuse. At 01:03 local time, a terse message hit the operations center aboard the carrier USS Harry S. Truman. Package Delta, execute. 3 words, no flourish. On warships, that sentence means every team on deck moves from prepare to go. Within minutes, the carrier deck glowed under floodlights. Flight deck crews, yellow jerseys guiding, green jerseys arming, red jerseys loading ordnance, pulled 4 FA-18 Super Hornets into launch position. Each jet carried JDAM precision bombs for hardened targets and HARM missiles for enemy radars. Catapults hissed, steam curled across the deck. Already airborne were 2 EA-18G Growlers, the Navy's electronic warfare workhorses. Their task, turn Houthi radar screens into static, floodcom channels with digital snow, and trick defenders into thinking a ghost fleet had appeared out of nowhere. 5 miles overhead, a MQ-4C Triton drone cruised at 55,000 feet. Its infrared cameras spotted heat blooms, marked tunnel entrances, and tracked the faint sparks of underground power cables. The drone's live feed piped straight to targeting officers on the Truman and to a destroyer lurking farther south. At sea, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer snapped open the hatches of its vertical launch system. Inside waited Tomahawk cruise missiles, slow, low-flying, and brutally accurate. Everything was in motion, yet on shore no one heard a thing. The Growlers stayed high until the last minute, then dropped toward the coastline and began pouring false signals across a wide slice of the spectrum. Early warning screens blinked and went dark. Sirens that should have howled stayed silent. It was not a simple attack. It was a 6-minute fire. The first JDAMs strike a northern fuel cluster. Tanks rupture. A wall of burning diesel rolls across the yard. The second wave hits a row of storage drums rumored to hold solid rocket fuel. Flames soar, then split into a pair of orange mushroom clouds. At sea, the destroyer launches 2 Tomahawks. The missiles skim 20 meters above the water, swoop inland, dive into an earth-covered tunnel mouth. A plume of dust and shattered concrete sprays skyward. Growlers blanket the port in more jamming. A backup radar that flickers on dies within seconds as a jet fires an anti-radiation missile straight down the beam. Last bombs fall on a warehouse suspected to hide a makeshift command post. The roof lifts, the walls collapse inward. When the clock hits 1:23, it is over. 17 precision weapons, 6 minutes, no debris outside the defined kill box. Sensors confirm no civilian vehicles inside the blast zone. The choreography could fit on a whiteboard: launch, jam, hit, verify, exit. The physical results are obvious: blackened soil, twisted rebar, half-melted pipes. The invisible damage is worse. Radios that should buzz with orders spit static. GPS repeaters fall silent. Aerial reconnaissance later shows fighters sprinting inland on foot, abandoning pickups still idling with doors open. 3 hours later, a pro-Houthi Telegram channel uploads shaky footage of flaming wreckage. The caption claims a U.S. drone was shot down. No coordinates, no timestamp, and analysts quickly trace the clip to an older crash from months ago. The message is clear: spin the story, deny the damage. Satellite imagery tells another tale. Entire fuel lots look like spilled ink. Antenna towers lie snapped like pencils. What remains standing is too warped for quick repair. Perhaps most telling, not a single retaliatory missile launches in the hours after the strike. The defenders are simply too stunned. News of the strike crosses oceans before sunrise. Oil traders in London and Singapore watch prices wobble. Gulf leaders request emergency calls with Washington. Defense analysts on Talk shows debate whether America just shifted from defensive containment to attacking economic lifelines. Some praise the precision, others warn it could spark a wider fire. Inside Houthi territory, intercepted messages reveal confusion verging on panic. Who has comms? Is HQ hit? Find any working transmitter. They ask if a cyber attack is underway. In a sense it is. Physical bombs paired with electronic smog. The effect is the same: paralysis. Why did the United States finally target a site long considered untouchable? Generals will cite hard intelligence showing Ras Issa directly fueling attacks on shipping and American aircraft. Strategists talk about risk calculus. But the simple answer is leverage. The Houthis believed the port's civilian face granted immunity. On 17 April, that myth cracked. The message stretches beyond Yemen. If a group turns civilian infrastructure into a weapons hub, that hub is now a bullseye. The precedent jars capitals from Tehran to Moscow. Militias who hide drones under grain silos or plant command vans behind hospitals must recalculate: is the cover worth the risk? Yet the move carries its own dangers. Strikes on oil facilities can jolt global energy markets and hand propaganda gifts to enemies. Washington knows this, which is why past administrations held back. This White House decided the bigger gamble was doing nothing. Package Delta looked simple on the surface: a handful of jets, a pair of missiles. But it signals a deeper shift in how fast connected warfare works. 1. Speed over mass. 6 minutes of bombs replaced weeks of attrition. Quick blows can break an opponent's rhythm before they can adapt. 2nd, multi-domain blend. Electronic fog, high-altitude eyes, sea-launched missiles, carrier jets, all stitched into one timeline. 3. Public silence, private clarity. No televised warning, no press release before impact. Intelligence drove the timeline, not diplomacy. The facts appeared only when smoke rose. 4. Zero collateral tolerance. American planners knew cameras would be watching. Any civilian death risks headlines and UN censure. Precision was not optional, it was the mission. By dawn, the smoke column is visible from orbit. Infrared sensors still register the heat hours later. The Truman's flight deck, however, has already cooled. Jets are rearmed. Fuel hoses click in place. Targeteers review new satellite frames, hunting for the next leverage point. On shore, Houthi units try to relocate radio antennas. Each time they power up, American signals craft detect the spike within seconds. A fresh growler circles beyond visual range, ready to jam again or cue another strike. The tempo has flipped. For months, the Houthis dictated pace with hit-and-run drones. Now they react. Oil executives whisper about rerouting tankers farther from Yemen. Insurance rates for ships rise overnight. European diplomats argue over whether the strike was defensive or escalatory. Inside U.S. think tanks, some hail the operation as the smart use of limited force, crippling war-making capacity without occupying land. Others warn it erodes long-standing norms against hitting civilian energy sites. Officials in allied Gulf states quietly approve. Ras Issa's fuel-powered drones that often menace their own cities. Yet they also fear becoming the next battleground if the Houthis seek revenge. Tehran's reaction remains muted, at least in public. Privately, security analysts say Iran must weigh how much support to keep sending if its proxies can no longer shield assets behind civilian sites. Will there be a follow-up strike? U.S. commanders refuse to confirm, but planners speak of Phase 2 whenever assets reposition. If new intelligence links other depots to drone operations, expect more night skies to flash. Meanwhile, the Houthis face a logistical headache. Moving fuel by truck across Yemen's rugged interior is slow and dangerous. The Red Sea coast offered the quickest gateway for smuggled components. With Ras Issa out of action, they must improvise or accept longer supply lines, both costly in a patchwork war economy. Rebuilding the port will not be simple. Crude storage tanks are specialized steel and take months to fabricate. Pipelines cannot be welded back together overnight, especially under embargo. Even if repairs start tomorrow, any sign of renewed military use may invite another visit from Package Delta. A single raid leveled a port and rattled strategies across 3 continents. It shows how 21st century power is less about the number of planes and more about fusing data, secrecy, and precisely timed violence. The United States turned 6 minutes of fire into a megaphone, broadcasting a blunt rule: infrastructure that feeds attacks is no longer safe. Whether that message stabilizes the region or lights a larger fuse will depend on what happens next, how the Houthis adapt, how allies respond, and how carefully Washington walks the new line it just drew. If you sat in the operations chair, would you have pulled the trigger on Ras Issa? Would you hit fuel, hit comms, or hold fire to avoid tipping the region into deeper conflict? Share your thoughts below. We study every comment. If this breakdown gave you a clearer view of modern warfare, how fast decisions turn into flame, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss our next deep dive. Want to back the channel directly? Click Join to become part of our fleet. You'll earn badges, priority replies, and help us chase the truth behind the headlines. Until then, stay alert, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the battlefield is not a trench or a desert. It's a loading dock hiding in plain sight.